You wake up on Christmas morning 1692, not in a bed, not in warmth, in a bell tower, stone walls, wind screaming through Gothic arches, your breath visible in the frozen air. Below you, the village of Rothenburg, Bavaria is waking up. Chimneys puff smoke, children laugh. Somewhere, someone is singing. You hate it. Your name is Klaus Bittermann, and you are the sacristan of St. Sebastian's Church, keeper of keys, lighter of candles, ringer of bells. You've lived in this tower for 11 years. Alone, by choice, because people are loud, dirty, and unbearably cheerful during Christmas. Especially during Christmas. You pull your woolen blanket tighter. Your fingers are stiff. Your joints ache. You're 43 years old, but you feel 70. This tower is your kingdom, your refuge, your prison, and today, Christmas Day, it will be invaded. Below you hear it starting, footsteps on cobblestone, voices rising, the creak of the church door opening, the rustle of winter cloaks and the stomp of boots shaking off snow. They're coming, the congregation, the faithful, the insufferable. You stand and look down through the narrow window, a sea of red cheeks and bright scarves. Families, children clutching wooden toys, wives adjusting husbands' collars, everyone smiling, everyone excited. It makes you nauseous. Christmas in 1692 isn't the commercial circus it will become. No plastic Santas, no credit card debt, but it's loud, it's communal, it's performative. Midnight mass, endless hymns, sermons about hope and redemption and God's love for humanity. You've heard it all 1,000 times. You don't believe a word. Not because you're faithless. You believe in God. You just don't believe in people. The bells hang above you like iron gods. 6 of them, named after saints. Each one weighs more than a horse. When they ring, the entire tower shakes. Your skull vibrates. Your teeth ache. The sound is so loud it feels like violence. And today they'll ring for hours. You climb the ladder to the bell chamber. Your hands are calloused from years of pulling ropes. You know every bell's voice, the deep, mournful toll of St. Sebastian, the bright, piercing cry of St. Agnes, the chaotic clang of St. Peter, who always sounds slightly drunk. You hate them all. But today, you have a plan. You're going to silence them. Not permanently, just adjusted, muffled, enough so that the bells ring softly, gently, barely audible. So the congregation below can have their mass in peace, so you can have your mourning in peace, so the whole damn village can stop pretending joy is mandatory. You pull a bundle of cloth from your satchel, old vestments, torn altar linens, rags you've been collecting for weeks. You wrap them around the clappers of the bells, tight, methodical, each knot carefully tied. The bells look ridiculous now, mummified, gagged, perfect. You climb down and wait. Below, the priest is beginning Mass. Father Ulrich, a kind man, too kind, the type who believes everyone deserves forgiveness, even you, especially you. He starts the opening hymn. The congregation joins. Their voices rise, thin, uncertain, unpolished, off-key. They're farmers and butchers and bakers, not trained singers. But they sing anyway. Because it's Christmas, because it's tradition, because that's what you do. You cringe. And then Father Ulrich signals. It's time for the bells. You pull the rope. St. Sebastian swings. And instead of the deep earth-shaking bong that should follow, thump. A muffled, pathetic sound, like a pillow hitting a wall. You grin. You pull again. Thump, thump, thump. It's working. The bells are silent. Well, not silent, but quiet enough, polite, manageable. You sit back satisfied. Below, the congregation falters. The hymn stumbles. Voices drop. Confusion ripples through the pews. People glance at each other. Where are the bells? Why can't we hear them? Father Ulrich stops singing. Silence. Then from the back of the church, a voice, a child's voice, small, pure, uncertain, singing the hymn alone, and then another voice joins. A woman, then a man, then 10 voices, then 50. The congregation, without the bells to guide them, begins to sing louder, clearer, together, You freeze. This isn't supposed to happen. You were supposed to silence them. Instead, you've amplified them. Their voices swell, harmonize, fill the stone walls of St. Sebastian's with something you haven't heard in years. Not performance, not obligation, but actual feeling. You lean against the cold stone and close your eyes, and for the first time in 11 years, you hate yourself more than you hate them. If this already feels like karmic justice, subscribe before it gets worse. Because Klaus, he's only just begun to ruin Christmas. Let's rewind. Who is Klaus Bitterman, really? Not a villain. Not yet. Just a man who made the mistake of thinking solitude was the same as peace. He was born in 1649, 3 years after the Peace of Westphalia ended the 30 Years' War. Germany was rubble, villages burned, fields salted, half the population dead from war, famine, or plague. His parents survived, barely. They had nothing, except faith. His father was a carpenter. His mother sewed vestments for the church. They were pious in the desperate way people are when prayer is the only currency left. Klaus grew up in that house, small, cold, crowded with siblings who died before they turned 5. He learned early, life is suffering, and God is silent. At 16, he became a sacristan, not because he wanted to serve God, because the church offered a room, a bed, meals, stability. He swept floors, lit candles, polished silver, rang bells, and somewhere along the way he forgot how to be around people, or maybe he never knew. The bells became his companions, predictable, reliable. They rang when he told them to. They didn't ask questions, didn't judge, didn't expect warmth or humor or kindness. They just were. Over the years, Klaus retreated further into the tower, stopped attending village festivals, stopped visiting the tavern, stopped pretending he enjoyed small talk about harvests and weather and who was courting whom. He wasn't cruel, just absent, and people stopped noticing. By 1692, Klaus had become a ghost, invisible, functional. The man who rang the bells and swept the floors and locked the doors at night. The man no one thought about. Until Christmas. Christmas was different. Christmas demanded participation. Midnight mass, morning mass, vespers, endless ceremonies. The church packed with bodies and breath and noise. Children running in the aisles. Families arguing over pew space. Drunk uncles singing off-key. Klaus hated all of it. Not because he hated Christmas exactly, but because he hated being reminded that he was alone. Every family in that church had someone, a wife, a child, a sibling, someone to sit beside, someone to share a meal with after Mass. Klaus had the bells, and this year he decided the bells and the village needed to be quieter. He told himself it was mercy. Really, it was revenge. Now, back to the moment. The congregation is singing, louder than before. Without the bells, their voices have become the music. Dozens of unpolished, untrained voices layering over each other. It's messy, chaotic, beautiful in a way Klaus doesn't want to admit. Father Ulrich is smiling. He doesn't understand what's happened, why the bells are silent, but he's not angry. He's moved. He raises his hands, conducting the hymn like a composer. The congregation follows, and Klaus, up in the tower, feels something crack inside him. Not guilt. Not yet. Just discomfort. He climbs back up the ladder. Maybe he can undo it. Unwrap the bells. Pretend it was an accident. But when he reaches the bell chamber, he stops. Because he hears them. The voices. Not from below. From everywhere. Echoing through the tower's stone. Vibrating through the walls. Surrounding him. He sits on the wooden beam and listens. They're singing "O Come All Ye Faithful," a hymn written 50 years ago. Simple. Repetitive. But the congregation sings it like it's the only song left in the world. Klaus closes his eyes. He remembers his mother singing this, in their tiny house, her voice thin and tired, but she sang it anyway, every Christmas, Even the year 3 of his siblings died. Why? Why sing when the world is ash? Why smile when there's nothing to smile about? He doesn't understand. Below the hymn ends. Father Ulrich begins his sermon. Klaus doesn't listen. He's too busy staring at the muffled bells, at the rags he wrapped around them, at the stupid, petty plan he thought would bring him peace. It didn't. It made everything worse. And now the village is singing, because of him. Klaus Bittermann just accidentally invented something. He doesn't know it yet. But in trying to silence joy, he's created the first unaccompanied church choir in Bavarian history. And the village? They're about to make it a tradition. By noon, the entire village knows something is wrong. The bells didn't ring. Not properly. Not loudly. For centuries, church bells have been the heartbeat of European life. They mark time, announce births, mourn deaths, warn of fires, floods, invaders. In 1692 Bavaria, bells are infrastructure, communication, law. When they go silent, people panic. After Mass, Father Ulrich climbs the tower. Klaus hears him coming, heavy boots on stone steps. The priest is 64, arthritic, wheezing, but determined. Klaus considers hiding. Where? The bell chamber? Behind a rope? Ridiculous. He sits on the floor and waits. Father Ulrich emerges through the trapdoor. His face is red, breathless but not angry, confused. "Klaus," he says, "what happened to the bells?" Klaus doesn't answer. Father Ulrich walks to the nearest bell. St. Sebastian. He sees the cloth wrapped around the clapper. His eyebrows rise. "Did you muffle them?" "Yes." "Why?" Klaus stares at the floor. "They're too loud." Father Ulrich blinks. "They're bells." "Exactly." The priest sits beside him. His knees creak. He smells like incense and old wool. "Klaus," he says gently, "the bells are supposed to be loud. That's their purpose." "I know." "Then why?" "Because I'm tired." The words come out harder than Klaus intends, but they're true. Father Ulrich studies him, not with judgment, with something worse. Pity. "Klaus," he says, "you've been up here a long time. 11 years. 11 years is a long time to be alone." Klaus doesn't respond. Father Ulrich sighs. "You know, the strangest thing happened this morning." Klaus looks up. "When the bells didn't ring," the priest continues, "the congregation sang louder, clearer. I've never heard them sing like that. Without the bells to overpower them, their voices had room, space. It was beautiful." Klaus frowns. "You're saying I did something good?" "I'm saying you did something unexpected." The priest stands. His knees protest. "I'm not going to force you to unwrap the bells," he says, "but I am going to ask you to come down from this tower. Join us for Christmas dinner. The village is gathering in the square. There will be food, music. You should—" "No. Klaus, I said no." Father Ulrich sighs again. "As you wish." He walks back to the trap door, pauses. "You know," he says, "the thing about bells, Klaus, they're not just for God. They're for us, to remind us we're not alone." He climbs down. Klaus sits in the silence, alone. That evening the village gathers in the square. Long wooden tables, roasted goose, cabbage stew. Mulled wine, candles everywhere, children running in circles, someone playing a fiddle. Laughter. Klaus watches from the tower window. He tells himself he doesn't care, but he watches anyway. Below, Father Ulrich stands, raises his cup. "To St. Sebastian's," he says, "and to the miracle of Christmas morning, when the bells fell silent and we remembered how to sing." The crowd cheers. They raise their cups. And then they sing. Not a hymn, a folk song. Something old, something Bavarian. About winter and warmth and coming home. Their voices rise into the cold night. Imperfect, joyful, human. Klaus closes the window, wraps himself in his blanket, and tries very, very hard not to cry. Klaus wanted silence. He got a choir. He wanted to be left alone. He got a tradition. And now the village is about to do something that will haunt him forever. 3 days after Christmas, a piece of paper appears, nailed to the church door, written in careful, formal script, a petition. Signed by 43 villagers, it reads, "We, the faithful of Rothenburg, hereby request that the bells of St. Sebastian's Church remain muffled during all masses for the remainder of the season. The clarity and beauty of congregational singing, as experienced on Christmas morning, has brought us closer to God and to one another. We believe this change honors both tradition and the human voice, God's first instrument." Father Ulrich reads it, twice. Then he climbs the tower. Klaus is oiling ropes. "Did you see this?" the priest asks, holding up the petition. "No. They want the bells to stay quiet." Klaus stops, looks up. "What?" "The village. They're asking for the bells to remain muffled. Permanently. Well, for now." Klaus stares at him. "This can't be real." "Why?" he asks. "Because," Father Ulrich says, "they liked singing. Really singing. Without being drowned out." Klaus shakes his head. "That's insane. The bells have rung here for 200 years. And now they might not." The priest hands him the petition. Klaus reads the names: farmers, bakers, blacksmiths, people he's known for years, people he's ignored for years, all of them asking for his mistake to become tradition. "This is your fault," Klaus mutters. "Actually," Father Ulrich says, "it's yours." Klaus glares at him. The priest smiles. "You gave them something, Klaus. A reason to listen to each other. You didn't mean to, but you did. I was trying to ruin Christmas. And instead you saved it." Klaus throws the petition on the floor. "I don't want this." "Too bad." Father Ulrich picks up the paper, dusts it off. "The bishop is coming next week," he says. "I'll present the petition to him. If he approves, the bells stay quiet. If not, you'll unwrap them and everything goes back to normal." "Good. But Klaus," the priest says, turning at the trapdoor, "if the bishop approves, you'll have to come down from this tower. Because the congregation will want to thank you." Klaus freezes. "Thank me? Of course, you're a hero." "I'm not a hero. I'm a miserable old man who hates people." Father Ulrich chuckles. "Well, perhaps God has a sense of humor." He leaves. Klaus sits in the empty bell chamber, surrounded by 6 muffled bells, and a sinking feeling that his life is about to get much, much worse. The next Sunday, Mass is different. The bells don't ring, but the congregation sings, loudly, clearly, with growing confidence. They're learning, practicing. Some of them have started harmonizing. Klaus listens from the tower. It sounds good. Really good. Not perfect, but earnest. Real. He hates it, because it's working. People are coming to Mass because of the singing. Families who skipped church for years are showing up. The tavern keeper, the miller's wife, even the village drunk, who stands in the back and hums off key but stays for the whole service. By mid-January, St. Sebastian's is packed, standing room only, and everyone is talking about the choir, the unintentional choir, the choir that exists because Klaus Bittermann, the loneliest man in Rothenburg, tried to silence Christmas. Father Ulrich is thrilled. Klaus is horrified. "This has to stop," Klaus says one evening. "Why?" the priest asks. "Because it's not real. It's not sacred. It's just people singing." "Klaus," Father Ulrich says gently, "that's the most sacred thing there is." Klaus doesn't have an answer for that. On January 15th, the bishop arrives, Bishop Heinrich von Schönborn, a severe man, tall, grey-bearded, eyes like a hawk. He attends Mass. The congregation sings. The bishop listens. Afterward, he meets with Father Ulrich in the vestry. Klaus is summoned. He climbs down from the tower for the first time in 3 weeks. His legs feel weak. The vestry is small, cold, lit by a single candle. The bishop sits behind a desk. Father Ulrich stands beside him. Klaus stands in the doorway. "Sacristan Bitterman," the bishop says, "Your Grace, I understand you are responsible for this experiment." "It was an accident." "An accident," the bishop repeats. "That has increased church attendance by 30%. Klaus blinks. "That has inspired spontaneous prayer meetings in villagers' homes. That has, according to Father Ulrich, rekindled the spiritual life of this parish." The bishop leans forward. "An accident," he says. "That may be the work of God." Klaus feels his stomach drop. "I'm approving the petition," the bishop says. "The bells will remain muffled. The congregation will continue to sing. And you, sacristan, will continue your work." But dismissed. Klaus stumbles out of the vestry, into the nave, where the congregation is waiting. 43 villagers, smiling, clapping. Someone shouts, "3 cheers for Klaus," and they cheer. Loudly. Klaus stands frozen. This is hell. Actual, literal hell. Klaus Bitterman just became the most celebrated man in Rothenburg, and he wants to die. But the worst part? This is only the beginning. Fame in 1692 doesn't mean Instagram followers. It means people talking to you. At the well, at the market, at the tavern. Klaus, who has spent 11 years perfecting the art of invisibility, is now the most visible man in Rothenburg. Everywhere he goes, someone wants to thank him. The baker gives him free bread. The butcher slips him extra sausage. The tailor offers to mend his cloak. For free. With a smile. It's unbearable. Klaus tries to retreat back to the tower, but Father Ulrich has other plans. "The congregation wants to improve," the priest says one morning. "Improve what?" "They're singing. They're enthusiastic, yes, but disorganized. Off-key. They need guidance." Klaus stares at him. "You want me to teach them?" "Not teach. Just listen. Correct them. Help them harmonize." "I'm not a musician. You've rung bells for 27 years. You understand rhythm, tempo, timing. That's not the same thing. It's close enough." Father Ulrich hands him a small wooden baton. "What is this?" Klaus asks. "A conductor's stick." "A what?" "It's used in courts, chapels, to keep singers together. You stand in front, wave it. They follow." Klaus stares at the stick. It's absurd. A piece of wood, no thicker than a candle. Light. Useless. "I'm not doing this," he says. "Klaus," Father Ulrich says, "the bishop has spoken, the village has spoken, this is happening, with or without you." "Then without me." "Fine," the priest says, "but they'll sound terrible. And everyone will wonder why the man who started this won't help finish it." Klaus grits his teeth. "When?" "Tonight, after Vespers. The choir is gathering in the nave." "The choir?" "Yes, that's what they're calling themselves now." Klaus closes his eyes. This is a nightmare. That evening, Klaus descends the tower. His hands are shaking, not from cold, from dread. The nave is full, not the whole village, just the singers, about 30 people, men and women, young and old. They're standing in rough rows, chatting, laughing. When Klaus enters, they go quiet. Everyone turns. Someone claps. Then everyone claps. Klaus wants to disappear. Father Ulrich steps forward. "Everyone, Sacristan Bitterman has graciously agreed to guide our singing." More applause. Klaus holds up the baton. "I don't know what I'm doing." A woman in the front row smiles. "Neither do we." Nervous laughter ripples through the group. Klaus exhales. "Fine," he says. "Let's start with O Come, All Ye Faithful. Everyone knows that one." They nod. "On my count," Klaus says. He raises the baton. Feels ridiculous. 1, 2, 3. They sing. And it's chaos. Half of them start too early, the other half too late. The men are too loud, the women too soft. No one is in the same key. Klaus stops them. "Again," he says. They sing again, still chaos, but slightly less chaos. Klaus frowns, waves the baton differently, slower, more deliberate. 1, 2, 3. This time they start together. The sound is rough, unpolished, but there's something there, a shape, a structure. Klaus feels it. The rhythm, The pulse. It's not unlike ringing bells. Pull the rope. Wait for the swing. Pull again. Timing is everything. He waves the baton. The choir follows. He slows the tempo. They slow. He speeds it up. They speed up. By the end of the hymn, they're almost synchronized. When they finish, the room is silent. Then someone whispers, "That was beautiful." Klaus looks at them. Their faces are flushed, eyes bright, smiling. Not at him, at each other. They felt it too. The synchronization, the harmony, the unity. Klaus lowers the baton. "Same time tomorrow," he says, and walks out before anyone can thank him. Over the next 3 weeks, Klaus descends the tower every evening. He doesn't want to, but he does because the choir is improving. Slowly, painfully, but improving. They learn new hymns, Adeste Fideles, In Dulci Jubilo. Silent Night won't be written for another 100 years, but they sing folk songs, Christmas carols, Bavarian drinking songs repurposed with holy lyrics. Klaus teaches them to breathe together, to listen to each other, to blend their voices instead of competing. He's not gentle. "You're sharp," he snaps at the baker. "You're dragging," he tells the miller's wife. "You sound like a dying goat," he says to the blacksmith. But they don't quit. They keep coming back. And slowly, Klaus realizes something. He doesn't hate this, he doesn't enjoy it. Not exactly, but he doesn't hate it. The choir gives him purpose, structure, something to do besides ring bells and sweep floors and count the days until he dies. He's still miserable. But he's productively miserable. By mid-February, the choir is ready. Father Ulrich schedules a special mass, invites the entire village. The church is packed. Klaus stands at the front, baton in hand, the choir behind him. He raises the baton. The congregation goes silent, and the choir sings, "O come, all ye faithful." But different now, polished, harmonized, layered. The soprano voices light and clear, the altos warm and steady, the tenors bright, the basses deep and grounding. It's not perfect, but it's real. The congregation listens. Some of them cry. When the hymn ends, there's silence, then applause, loud, long, genuine. Klaus lowers the baton, turns to leave, but Father Ulrich stops him. "Klaus," he says, "the village wants to name the choir." "Name it?" "Yes. After you." Klaus freezes. "No." They insist. I said no. "Klaus, if they name it after me, I quit." Father Ulrich sighs. "What should we call it then?" Klaus thinks. "The Saint Sebastian Choir," he says. "After the church, not me." Father Ulrich smiles. Done. And that night in the frozen bell tower, Klaus Bittermann sits alone and wonders if he's just made the biggest mistake of his life. Klaus Bittermann, the man who hated Christmas, just created the first named church choir in Rothenburg. But fame is a trap, and Klaus, he's about to fall into it. Spring, 1693. The snow melts, Rothenburg blooms, and the St. Sebastian Choir becomes famous. Not internet famous. Not even Germany famous, but region famous. Word spreads through villages, markets, trade routes. Letters carried by priests and merchants. A church in Bavaria where the bells don't ring, where the congregation sings instead. And they sound good? Pilgrims start arriving. Not many. A trickle. But steady. They come to hear the choir. To join the choir. To ask Father Ulrich how they can start choirs in their own parishes. Klaus watches from the tower, horrified. This was supposed to be small. Local, contained. Now it's spreading. He considers wrapping the bells tighter, pretending the whole thing never happened, but it's too late. The choir has momentum, and in April, someone important arrives. His name is Johann Pachelbel, composer, organist, teacher. Famous across the Holy Roman Empire for his keyboard works, his chorales, his canon in D, which won't become a wedding cliché for another 300 years, but is already beloved in Baroque circles. He's traveling from Nuremberg to Vienna, stops in Rothenburg for the night, hears about the choir, attends Mass, and afterward he asks to meet Klaus. Klaus is in the tower when Father Ulrich delivers the news. "There's a man here to see you." "I don't want to see anyone." "Klaus, it's Johann Pachelbel." Klaus pauses. "Who?" "The composer. The famous composer." "Never heard of him." Father Ulrich sighs. "He's waiting in the vestry." Klaus reluctantly descends. The vestry is small. Pachelbel is not. He's tall, broad-shouldered, mid-40s, wigged and well-dressed. He looks like someone who attends court, who dines with nobility, who doesn't belong in a Bavarian village church. He stands when Klaus enters. "Sacristan Bitterman," he says, bowing slightly. "An honor." Klaus frowns. "Why?" Pachelbel smiles. "I heard your choir this morning. Extraordinary. Truly, the harmony, the precision, and all without instrumental accompaniment. Remarkable. It's not my choir." Father Ulrich says otherwise. Klaus glares at the priest. Pachelbel continues. "I've been composing for 20 years, court chapels, cathedral choirs, professional musicians. But what I heard this morning, that was something different, something pure. It's just villagers singing." "Exactly," Pachelbel says. "No egos, no competition, just voices, blending in service of something greater. That's rare." Klaus doesn't respond. Pachelbel pulls a rolled parchment from his coat. "I've written something," he says, "a choral piece, specifically for your choir." Klaus stares at him. "Why?" "Because they deserve it, and because I want to hear what they can do with real composition." He hands Klaus the parchment. Klaus unrolls it. Musical notation. Notes he barely understands. Latin lyrics. "What is this?" he asks. "Lob den Herren," Pachelbel says. "Praise the Lord." A chorale. 4 voices, based on a psalm. Klaus looks at the notes, the curves, the complexity. "They can't sing this." "They can," Pachelbel says, "with your guidance. I'm not a teacher. You've taught them this much." Klaus shakes his head. "This is too complicated." "Try," Pachelbel says. "Please, I'll be passing through again in 3 months. I'd love to hear it." He bows again, leaves. Klaus stands holding the parchment. Father Ulrich grins. "Congratulations, you've been commissioned." Klaus crumples the paper, but that night in the tower, he uncrumples it, smooths it out. Reads the notes. He doesn't understand most of it, but he understands the rhythm, the structure, the logic. It's like bells, patterns, timing, layers. He hums the melody. It's beautiful. Against his will, he's curious. The next evening, Klaus brings the parchment to choir practice. "Pachelbel gave us something," he says. The choir murmurs excitedly. "It's difficult," Klaus warns. "Very difficult." "We can do it," the baker says. Klaus sighs. "Fine. Let's start with the soprano line." He hums the melody. The sopranos try, fail, try again. It takes 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Klaus barking corrections, restarting, drilling the same 4 measures over and over until everyone wants to scream. But slowly, impossibly, they learn it. The sopranos, then the altos, then the tenors and basses. By June, they're singing all 4 parts, together, harmonized, and it's stunning. Klaus stands in front of them, baton raised, and for the first time in his life he feels something close to pride. Not pride in himself, pride in them. These farmers and butchers and bakers who work all day and come to church at night to sing. They're not professionals, but they sound like they could be. Pachelbel returns in July. The choir performs Lob den Herren after Sunday Mass. The composer sits in the front pew, listening, silent. When they finish, he doesn't applaud. He just sits there. Then he stands, walks to Klaus and hugs him. "Thank you," Pachelbel whispers. Klaus is too stunned to respond. Afterward, Pachelbel gives Klaus more music, 3 more chorales, a psalm setting, a canticle. "For the next 3 months," he says. "I'll return in October, And when I do, I'd like to bring someone. Who? Klaus asks. A patron. Someone who funds composers, church musicians. Someone who might sponsor your choir. Klaus freezes. Sponsor? Yes. Train them further. Maybe even a patron. The word sits in Klaus's stomach like a stone. He climbs back to the tower that night and stares at the muffled bells. Sponsorship means money, recognition, legitimacy. It also means expectation. And Klaus has spent his entire life avoiding expectation. He unwraps one of the bells. St. Agnes, the smallest. Her clapper swings free. He pulls the rope. She rings, loud, clear, piercing. The sound fills the tower, shakes the walls, rattles his teeth. He forgot how violent it is, how honest. The choir is beautiful, controlled, harmonious. The bell is chaos, raw, unapologetic. Klaus raps it again. Silence returns. He sits on the floor and closes his eyes. Over the next 3 months, Klaus drives the choir harder than ever. They rehearse 4 nights a week, sometimes 5. He's merciless. Again, he snaps when the altos drift sharp. Slower, he commands when the basses rush. Are you even listening to each other? He shouts when the sopranos drown out the tenors. Some of them cry, most of them want to quit, but none of them do. Because Klaus has changed, not softened, not exactly, but focused, intense, almost obsessed. He's not teaching them to sing anymore, he's teaching them to be perfect. Father Ulrich notices. Klaus, he says one evening, you're pushing them too hard. They need to be ready. For what? They're villagers, not court musicians. Pachelbel is bringing a patron, Klaus says. Someone important, someone who could change everything. Change what exactly? Klaus doesn't answer, because he doesn't know. He just knows that if the choir fails, it's his fault. And failure is something Klaus understands intimately. October arrives, the leaves turn gold, the air grows cold, and on October 12th, 1693, Johann Pachelbel returns. He's not alone. Beside him is a woman, tall, elegant, mid-30s, dressed in deep green velvet. Her hair pinned beneath a jeweled cap, rings on every finger. She looks like royalty, she's not. Her name is Margarete von Stein, widow of a wealthy merchant, patron of the arts, financier of composers, painters, architects across Bavaria and Austria. She has money, influence, taste, and she's here to hear a village choir. Father Ulrich greets her at the church door, bows deeply. Frau von Stein, an honor. She nods, smiles politely. Father, Herr Pachelbel speaks very highly of your choir. We're humbled. I'm curious, she says. A choir without instruments, without formal training, it's unusual. We believe God gave us voices for a reason, Father Ulrich says. Indeed, she replies. Let's hear them. The choir gathers in the nave. 30 voices, nervous, sweating. Klaus stands at the front, baton in hand. He looks at them. The baker, the butcher, the tailor, the miller's wife. People he's known for years, ignored for years. Now they're looking at him like he holds their future. He hates it. Margarete von Stein sits in the front pew, Pachelbel beside her, waiting. Klaus raises the baton. The choir inhales. Together. And they sing. Lob den Herren, Pachelbel's chorale. 4-part harmony. Latin text. Intricate counterpoint. They've rehearsed it 100 times, but this time is different, because this time someone is judging them. The sopranos start. Light, clear, perfect. The altos enter. Warm, supportive. The tenors join. Bright, precise. The basses anchor. Deep, steady. Klaus conducts, eyes closed, baton moving like a heartbeat. He's not thinking about technique anymore, just feeling. The way the voices layer, the way they breathe together, the way they create something bigger than themselves. When the final note fades, the church is silent. Klaus opens his eyes. Margareta von Stein is staring at him. No expression. Then she stands, applauds, once, twice, 3 times. Slowly, deliberately. The choir exhales. Afterward, Margarete speaks with Father Ulrich in the vestry. Klaus is summoned. He enters, stands awkwardly. "Sacristan Bitterman," she says. "That was extraordinary." "Thank you." "Where did you study music?" "I didn't." She raises an eyebrow. "You're self-taught." "I ring bells." Pachelbel chuckles. "I told you." Margaret circles Klaus, studying him. "I'd like to sponsor your choir," she says. Klaus's throat tightens. "What does that mean?" "Money," she says. "For robes, music, perhaps an organ eventually. I'd also like to send a professional vocal teacher, someone to refine their technique." "They don't need refining." "Everyone needs refining, Herr Bitterman." Klaus bristles. "They're perfect as they are." "They're good," Margaret corrects. "With proper training, they could be exceptional." "They're villagers, not performers." "Why can't they be both?" Klaus doesn't have an answer. Margaret smiles. "Think about it. I'll return in 3 months. If you accept my sponsorship, we'll formalize the arrangement. If not," she shrugs, "I'll find another choir." She leaves. Pachelbel lingers. "Klaus," he says quietly, "this is an opportunity. Don't let pride ruin it." "It's not pride." "Then what is it?" Klaus looks at the floor. "I don't want them to change." "Why?" "Because right now they sing for joy. If she sponsors them, they'll sing for her, for money, for approval." Pachelbel nods slowly. "I understand." But Klaus, joy doesn't pay for robes, or music, or survival. He leaves. Klaus stands alone in the vestry and realizes he has 3 months to decide whether to let the choir stay pure and small or let it grow into something he can't control. Klaus has a choice: keep the choir humble and hidden, or let it become something bigger, something professional, something that might destroy the very thing that made it beautiful. And Klaus, he's terrified of both options. Klaus doesn't tell the choir about Margarete's offer. Not immediately. He lets them rehearse, lets them sing, lets them believe nothing has changed. But something has. They know someone important heard them. They know they were good. And now, some of them want more. It starts with the baker's son, a tenor, young, ambitious. "Sacristan," he says after practice one night, "will that woman come back?" "Maybe." "Do you think she could help us perform elsewhere? In other churches?" Klaus frowns. "Why would we do that? To share what we've built, to inspire others." Klaus shakes his head. "This choir isn't about performance, it's about worship. Can't it be both?" Klaus doesn't answer, but the question lingers. Over the next few weeks, the choir begins to fracture. Not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly. Some of them want to grow, to improve, to be known. Others want to stay small, local, simple, and Klaus is caught in the middle. The baker's son starts missing rehearsals. Says he's too busy. The miller's wife stops smiling. The blacksmith argues about song choices. One night, after a particularly tense practice, Father Ulrich pulls Klaus aside. "What's happening?" the priest asks. "I don't know." "You do. You're just afraid to admit it." Klaus glares at him. Father Ulrich sighs. "Klaus, the choir is changing. That's not bad. But you have to decide what you want it to become." "I want it to stay the same." "That's not an option." "Why not?" "Because growth is inevitable. People heard them, word spread. You can't put that back in the bottle." Klaus clenches his fists. "So I'm supposed to let some rich woman turn them into a circus?" "No," Father Ulrich says gently. "You're supposed to guide them, protect them, but also let them choose their own path. They're villagers. They don't know what's best for them." "And you do?" Klaus doesn't respond. In November, Klaus calls a meeting. The entire choir, after Mass. He stands at the front of the nave. No baton, no music, just honesty. Margarete von Stein offered to sponsor us, he says. The choir murmurs. She wants to send a teacher, buy us robes, maybe an organ. She wants us to perform in other churches, maybe even Vienna. Excited whispers. Klaus raises his hand. Silence. But, he says, if we accept, things will change. We'll have expectations, obligations. We won't just be singing for God, we'll be singing for her. The baker's son stands. Isn't that a good thing? We could reach more people, inspire more parishes. Or, Klaus says, we could lose what makes us special. What makes us special? The miller's wife asks. Joy, Klaus says. You sing because you want to, not because you have to, not because someone's paying you. If we accept sponsorship, that changes. The blacksmith speaks up. So you're saying we should stay small, never grow? I'm saying we should be careful. Careful, the baker's son says, or cowardly. The room goes silent. Klaus stares at him. You think I'm a coward? I think you're afraid of change. Klaus feels his face flush. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Success? From losing yourselves. The baker's son shakes his head. Maybe we want to lose ourselves. Maybe we want to become something more. Klaus looks around the room. Half the choir is nodding. The other half looks uncertain. We'll vote, Klaus says. Those who want to accept the sponsorship, raise your hands. 15 hands go up. Those who don't? 12 hands. 3 people abstain. Klaus's heart sinks. Fine, he says. We accept. He walks out before anyone can see his face. That night, Klaus climbs to the bell chamber. He stares at the muffled bells. St. Sebastian, St. Agnes, St. Peter. Silent, gagged, impotent. He unwraps them, all of them. The cloth falls away. The clappers swing free. Klaus pulls the ropes. The bells ring. Loud. Chaotic. Overwhelming. The entire village hears. It's midnight. People wake, stumble to their windows. Klaus rings the bells harder, louder. He's not announcing anything. He's just screaming, through iron and sound, letting the bells say what he can't, that he's terrified, that he's losing control, that the thing he accidentally created is becoming something he doesn't recognize. He rings the bells for an hour, until his arms ache, until his ears ring, until he collapses on the floor. And in the silence that follows, Klaus Bittermann realizes something. He's not angry at the choir. He's angry at himself, because he cared. He let himself care. And now, caring hurts. Klaus Bittermann just lost control of the choir. But worse, he realized he never had control in the first place, and now he has to face the thing he fears most, letting go. December 1693. Snow returns, and so does Margarete von Stein. She arrives in a carriage, black lacquer, gold trim, pulled by 4 horses. The entire village gathers to watch. She steps out like a queen. Behind her a man emerges, thin, sharp-featured, mid-20s, dressed in black, carrying a leather satchel. His name is Konrad Müller, vocal instructor, trained in Vienna, studied under Antonio Caldara. He's here to teach the choir, to improve them. Klaus watches from the tower window and feels his stomach turn. Konrad's first rehearsal is that evening. Klaus stands in the back, arms crossed. Konrad stands at the front. Confident, poised. Good evening, he says. I'm Konrad Müller. I've been hired by Frau von Stein to refine your vocal technique. The choir nods. Konrad smiles. Let's start with breathing. Everyone stand. They stand. Place your hand on your abdomen. Breathe in through your nose. Feel your belly expand. They breathe. Good. Now exhale slowly through your mouth, like blowing out a candle. They exhale. Excellent. This is diaphragmatic breathing, the foundation of good singing. Klaus frowns. They've been singing for a year without worrying about their abdomen. Konrad continues. Now let's work on vowel shapes. Say ah. Ah, the choir repeats. No, no, not ah. Ah. Open your mouth wider. Drop your jaw. Ah. Better. Now a. Ah. Rounder. Think of an egg shape. Klaus's jaw tightens. This is ridiculous. Conrad spends 2 hours on breathing and vowels. They don't sing a single note. By the end, the choir looks exhausted, confused, frustrated. Conrad claps his hands. Wonderful. Tomorrow we'll work on resonance. Dismissed. The choir files out. Klaus approaches. What was that? He asks. Conrad looks up. Technique. The fundamentals. They've been singing for a year. They don't need fundamentals. Everyone needs fundamentals, Herr Bittermann. They were fine before you arrived. Conrad smiles. Fine, yes, but not exceptional. Frau von Stein didn't hire me to keep them fine. She hired me to make them extraordinary. Klaus steps closer. They're already extraordinary. With respect, Conrad says, you're a bell ringer, not a musician. Klaus feels his fists clench. Get out. Conrad raises an eyebrow. Excuse me? Get out of my church. This isn't your church, Herr Bittermann. It belongs to God, and to Father Ulrich, and now to Frau von Stein. Klaus stares at him. Conrad picks up his satchel. I'll see you tomorrow, he says, and leaves. Klaus stands alone in the empty nave and realizes he's lost more than control. He's lost authority. Over the next 3 weeks, Conrad transforms the choir. He teaches them breath control, vowel placement, resonance, vibrato. He drills them on posture, facial muscles, tongue position. The choir learns things they never knew existed. And slowly they improve. Their sound becomes richer, fuller, more polished. But something else changes too. They stop smiling. Rehearsals become work, obligation, a checklist of technical corrections. The joy fades. Klaus watches from the back of the church, silent, invisible. Conrad doesn't ask for his input, doesn't acknowledge him. Klaus is no longer the conductor. He's just the bell ringer. One night after rehearsal, the baker approaches Klaus. Sacristan, he says quietly, can I ask you something? What? Do you like what we're doing? Klaus looks at him. What do you mean? With Conrad, the techniques, the corrections. It feels different. Different how? The baker hesitates. Less fun. Klaus exhales. Then why do it? Because he says it's necessary, that we need to be professional. Do you want to be professional? The baker thinks. I don't know. I just wanted to sing. Klaus nods. Then sing. But Conrad isn't you. He doesn't know why you started, why any of you started. The baker smiles sadly. Neither do you, sacristan. He walks away. And Klaus realizes he's right. He doesn't know them. He never asked. On December 23rd, the choir performs for Margarete von Stein in St. Sebastian's, in new robes, deep blue, embroidered with gold thread. They look professional. They sound professional. Conrad conducts. Klaus watches from the bell tower window. They sing Pachelbel. They sing Schütz. They sing a new composition Conrad brought from Vienna. It's flawless, technically perfect. But when Klaus closes his eyes, he doesn't feel anything. No joy, no warmth, no humanity, just precision. When the performance ends, Margareta stands, applauds. Exceptional, she says. Truly, Herr Müller, you've worked a miracle. Conrad bows. I'd like to book them for Easter, Margareta continues. In Munich, the Duke's chapel. The choir gasps. Munich. The Duke. This is real. Klaus closes the window and realizes he's been replaced. Klaus created the choir, but Conrad perfected it. And now Klaus is watching the thing he loved most become something he doesn't recognize. But the story isn't over, because on Christmas Eve 1693, something will happen that changes everything. Christmas Eve 1693. The church is packed. Every pew, every corner. standing room only, visitors from neighboring villages, pilgrims, curious onlookers. They've all come to hear the St. Sebastian choir, the choir that sings like angels, the choir that doesn't need bells. Klaus stands in the bell tower, alone. Below, the choir files into position, wearing their blue robes. Looking professional, polished, perfect. Conrad stands at the front, baton in hand, Klaus's baton. The one Father Ulrich gave him a year ago. It feels like a lifetime. The Mass begins. Father Ulrich gives the opening blessing. The congregation responds. And then it's time for the choir. Conrad raises the baton. The choir inhales. And nothing. They don't sing. Conrad frowns, raises the baton again. Still nothing. The choir stands frozen, silent. Conrad lowers the baton. What's wrong? The baker steps forward. We're not singing, he says. What? Why not? Because, the baker says, we forgot why we started. The congregation murmurs. Conrad looks confused. What are you talking about? The miller's wife speaks. We didn't start this choir to be professional. We started because the bells went silent, and we wanted to sing. The blacksmith nods. We wanted joy, not perfection. Conrad stares at them. You're being irrational. Frau von Stein is here. The Duke's representatives are here. You can't just... We can, the baker says. He turns to the congregation. We're going to sing, he says, but not Conrad's way, our way. He looks up, at the bell tower, at Klaus. Sacristan Bitterman, he calls. Will you conduct us? The church goes silent. Every eye turns upward. Klaus freezes. He's been invisible for weeks. Now, suddenly, he's the center of everything. No, he says. Please, the baker says. I'm not your conductor anymore. You were never just our conductor, the miller's wife says. You were our beginning. Klaus shakes his head. But then the baker's son speaks, the young tenor who challenged him. I was wrong, he says. I thought we needed to change, to grow, to be more. But I realized something. We don't need to be more. We're enough. He looks at Klaus. Please, he says, come down. Klaus stands at the window, looking at the choir, at the faces he's known for years, the people he ignored, then taught, then lost. And he realizes. He's been wrong about everything. He thought he hated people, but really he just didn't know how to be with them. He thought the bells were his companions, but they were just noise. The choir was never about control. It was about connection. And if he walks away now, he loses the only real thing he's ever had. Klaus climbs down from the tower. For the first time in months, he walks into the nave. The congregation parts. He approaches the choir. Conrad steps aside. Klaus takes the baton. His hand shakes. What do you want to sing? He asks. The choir looks at each other. Then the baker smiles. O come, all ye faithful, he says. The first one, the one that started everything. Klaus nods. He raises the baton. The choir inhales. Together. And they sing. Not perfectly, not polished, but joyfully. The sopranos bright and clear. The altos warm and steady. The tenors hopeful. The basses grounding. Their voices fill the church, not with precision. With presence. Klaus conducts, eyes closed, feeling every note, every breath, every moment. And when the hymn ends, the congregation erupts. Applause, cheers, laughter. Margareta von Stein stands. She doesn't applaud. She just stares. Then she walks out. Conrad follows. The choir doesn't care. They sing another hymn. And another. And Klaus, for the first time in his life, feels at home. Klaus Bitterman just lost his sponsor, his funding, his professional future. But he gained something more important, his choir back. And on Christmas morning 1694, he'll make a decision that defines the rest of his life. Christmas morning 1694. Klaus wakes in the bell tower, cold, stiff, but different, lighter. Below, the village is quiet, snow falling, smoke rising from chimneys. He descends the ladder, walks through the empty church. The nave still smells like candle wax and evergreen, remnants of last night's mass. He sits in the front pew, alone, and waits. He doesn't know what for, just waits. An hour later, Father Ulrich enters. He sees Klaus sits beside him. They don't speak for a long time. Then the priest says, "That was quite a performance last night." "It wasn't a performance." "I know." Father Ulrich smiles. "Margareta left this morning, early, took Conrad with her." Klaus nods. "I expected that. She said the choir was unprofessional, undisciplined, a waste of her investment." "She's right." "No," Father Ulrich says. "She's wrong. What I saw last night wasn't unprofessional, it was honest." Klaus looks at him. "The choir sang like they did a year ago," the priest continues. "With joy, with spirit. That's worth more than all the technique in Vienna. Tell that to Margaret." "I don't care what Margaret thinks, neither should you." Klaus exhales. "So what now?" "Now," Father Ulrich says, "you decide what the choir becomes. I thought the choir decided that last night. They chose joy. But joy still needs direction, leadership, you." Klaus shakes his head. "I don't know if I can." "Why not?" "Because I'll mess it up again. I'll try to control it, or protect it, or push it too hard." "Probably," Father Ulrich says, "but that's what leadership is. Making mistakes, learning, trying again." Klaus laughs bitterly. "I'm not a leader." "Then what are you?" Klaus thinks. "A bell ringer," he says, "who accidentally started a choir." Father Ulrich smiles. "Then be that. Be the bell ringer who guides them, who keeps time, who reminds them when to breathe." Klaus looks at the empty nave. "What if they leave?" he asks. "What if they realize they don't need me?" "Then you let them go." "But Klaus," Father Ulrich stands. "They came back last night. They asked for you. That means something." He leaves. Klaus sits in the silence and realizes the priest is right. The choir chose him. Not Conrad, not Margaret. Him. And that's terrifying. But it's also enough. That evening the choir gathers. Not for rehearsal, just to talk. They sit in a circle in the nave. No formality, no structure. Klaus sits with them. "So," the baker says, "what do we do now?" "I don't know," Klaus admits. "We lost our sponsor," the miller's wife says. "Our robes, our funding. We still have our voices," the blacksmith says. "And each other," the baker's son adds. Klaus looks at them. "Do you want to continue?" he asks. "Yes," they say, almost in unison. "Even without money? Without robes? Without performing in Munich?" "Yes." Klaus exhales. "Then we continue, but on our terms. We sing when we want, what we want, for ourselves, for God, for no one else." The choir nods. "And," Klaus adds, "we go back to basics. No techniques, no vowels, no diaphragms, just singing." The baker grins. "I think I can manage that." They laugh. For the first time in months they laugh. Over the next year the choir shrinks. Some members leave. Move to other villages, get married, have children, but others stay. The core, the faithful. They rehearse once a week, sometimes twice. They sing old hymns, folk songs, anything they enjoy. No pressure, no expectations, just joy. Klaus conducts, not with a baton, just his hands, his voice, his presence. He's not trying to perfect them, just guide them. And slowly, he learns their names, really learns them. The baker is Johann. He has 5 children and a bad knee. The miller's wife is Greta. She lost 2 sons to fever. Singing helps her remember them. The blacksmith is Ernst. He's tone deaf but refuses to quit. The baker's son is Michael. He wants to be a teacher someday. Klaus knows them now, not as voices, as people, and it changes everything. In the spring of 1695, something unexpected happens. A letter arrives from Johann Pachelbel. Klaus opens it in the tower. It reads, "Dear Klaus, I heard about what happened with Frau von Stein. I'm sorry, but also not sorry. I visited Rothenburg last week, heard your choir sing, and I must tell you, they sound better now than they ever did under Conrad's instruction. Technique is important, but soul is irreplaceable. You've given them soul. Keep singing, keep leading. The world needs more choirs like yours. Your friend Johann Klaus reads it twice. Then he folds it carefully and places it in his satchel. It's the first letter he's ever kept. That Sunday, after Mass, a stranger approaches Klaus, a young woman, maybe 20, nervous. "Sacristan Bitterman," she asks. "Yes?" "My name is Anna. I'm from Dinkelsbühl. I heard about your choir. I'd like to start one in my village. Could you teach me?" Klaus blinks. "Teach you?" "Yes. How to conduct, how to lead, how to make people want to sing." Klaus looks at her. This young woman, hopeful, eager, asking him, Klaus Bitterman, the miserable bell ringer, for guidance. He should say no. He should tell her he doesn't know what he's doing. But instead he says, "Come to rehearsal tonight, watch, listen, then we'll talk." Anna smiles. "Thank you," she says. And Klaus realizes, the choir isn't just his anymore. It's becoming something bigger, not through sponsorship or money or fame, but through people, one village at a time. Klaus Bitterman accidentally started a movement, but he's not trying to lead it. He's just trying to keep time, and sometimes that's all a movement needs. Anna returns every week for 2 months. She watches Klaus conduct, takes notes, asks questions. "How do you know when to speed up?" "I don't. I feel it." "How do you correct someone without discouraging them?" "I don't always. Sometimes correction is discouragement." "How do you keep them engaged?" "I don't. They keep themselves engaged. I just show up." Anna writes everything down. By March, she's ready. She returns to Dinkelsbühl, and 3 months later, Klaus receives a letter. "We have a choir, 12 voices. They sound terrible, but they're smiling, thank you." Klaus reads it twice, then shows it to Father Ulrich. "You're a teacher now," the priest says. "I'm not a teacher." "Klaus, she learned from you. That makes you a teacher." Klaus folds the letter. "I don't want to be a teacher." Too bad. Because Father Ulrich is right. Word spreads. About the choir that sings without bells. About the sacristan who teaches joy, not technique. More visitors arrive. From Würzburg, from Bamberg, from Nuremberg. They watch rehearsals, ask questions, take notes, and then they go home and start their own choirs. By 1696, there are 7 choirs across Bavaria singing the Rothenburg way. No instruments, no formality, just voices and joy. Klaus doesn't know whether to be proud or horrified. He settles on both. But not everyone is happy. In October 1696, Klaus receives a summons from the Archbishop of Bamberg. He's to appear at the diocesan office immediately. Klaus shows the letter to Father Ulrich. The priest goes pale. "This isn't good," he says. "What does the Archbishop want?" "I don't know. But when the Archbishop summons you, it's never for praise." Klaus travels to Bamberg. 3 days by foot. Cold, wet, miserable. He arrives at the diocesan office on a grey morning. It's a fortress, stone, Gothic, intimidating. He's led to a room, small, dark. The Archbishop sits behind a desk. He's old, 70 maybe, white-haired, cold-eyed. Klaus stands. The Archbishop doesn't invite him to sit. "Sacristan Bitterman," he says, "Your Grace. You've been causing problems." Klaus blinks. "Problems?" "Your choir, these congregational singing groups, they're spreading, and they're undermining liturgical tradition. We're just singing hymns. You're singing without proper accompaniment, without organs, without trained musicians. It's irregular. It's joyful." The Archbishop leans forward. "The Church is not interested in joy, Herr Bitterman. It's interested in order." Klaus feels his anger rise. "With respect, Your Grace, I think God is interested in joy." You presume to know what God wants? No, but I know what people want, and they want to sing. The Archbishop's eyes narrow. You're a sacristan, not a theologian, not a composer, not a reformer. You're a bell ringer, and you're overstepping. I'm not trying to reform anything. You're disrupting centuries of tradition. Do you understand the implications? If every village starts singing without instruments, without trained musicians, what happens to our organists, our composers, our sacred music traditions? Klaus stares at him. People learn to pray, he says quietly. The Archbishop stands. You will cease instructing others. You will return to Rothenburg, and your choir will resume using the church bells as God intended. No. The word hangs in the air. The Archbishop's face darkens. Excuse me. I said no, the bells stay silent during Mass. The choir continues singing, and if people from other villages want to learn, I'll teach them. You're defying a direct order from your Archbishop. I'm following my conscience. The Archbishop walks around the desk, stops inches from Klaus. You're a fool, Herr Bittermann, a stubborn, prideful fool. I could have you removed from your position, excommunicated even. Klaus meets his gaze. Then do it, he says, but the choir will keep singing, with or without me. The Archbishop stares at him, then, surprisingly, he laughs. You really believe that, don't you? Yes. The Archbishop returns to his desk, sits. You remind me of someone, he says. A Benedictine monk I knew 40 years ago. Just as stubborn, just as convinced he was right. What happened to him? He started a monastery, reformed half of Bavaria, died beloved and remembered. The Archbishop waves his hand. Go. Return to your tower, but know this, Herr Bittermann, the Church moves slowly. We've survived reformers before. We'll survive you. Klaus bows, leaves. His hands are shaking. He just defied an Archbishop. He should be terrified, but instead, he feels free. Klaus returns to Rothenburg in late October. The village welcomes him like a hero. They didn't know where he'd gone. When he tells them, they're shocked. You stood up to the Archbishop? Johann the baker asks. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Father Ulrich says. You chose courage. Klaus shakes his head. I chose the choir. Same thing, Greta says. That evening, they rehearse. And for the first time, Klaus tells them everything. About Anna, about the other choirs, about the Archbishop's warning. So, Michael the baker's son says, we're rebels now. I suppose so, Klaus says. Good, Ernst the blacksmith says. I always wanted to be a rebel. They laugh. But underneath the laughter is something else. Pride, purpose. They're not just a village choir anymore. They're part of something bigger, a movement, a quiet revolution. And Klaus Bittermann, the man who wanted to be alone, is leading it. Klaus defied the Archbishop. The choir became rebels, and across Bavaria something is spreading. Not revolution, not reformation, just song. But sometimes, song is the most dangerous thing of all. Winter, 1696. Bavaria freezes. Rivers ice over. Roads become impassable. Villages isolate. But the choirs keep singing. In Dinkelsbühl, Anna's choir grows to 20 voices. In Würzburg, a butcher starts a choir in his guild hall. In Bamberg, 3 churches secretly adopt the Rothenburg method. Letters arrive at St. Sebastian's weekly. Klaus reads them all. Some ask for advice. How do we handle members who can't carry a tune? Klaus writes back, let them sing anyway. Some share successes. Our choir performed at a wedding. The bride cried. Klaus smiles. Some share failures. Our priest forbade us from singing without the organ. We disbanded. Klaus writes, don't disband. Sing in homes, in barns, anywhere. The location doesn't matter. He's become a correspondent, a mentor, a reluctant leader of something he still doesn't fully understand. Father Ulrich watches him write letters by candlelight. You're changing Bavaria, the priest says. I'm answering questions. Same thing. Klaus seals another letter. I don't want to change anything. I just want people to sing. Klaus, Father Ulrich says gently. Wanting people to sing is changing things, but not everyone is writing letters of support. In December, an anonymous pamphlet circulates, printed, distributed across Bavaria. It's titled, "The Danger of Congregational Singing." Klaus obtains a copy. It reads, "A dangerous trend has infected our churches. Untrained villagers, led by an unqualified sacristan, have abandoned sacred musical traditions in favor of crude, unaccompanied singing. This mockery of liturgy must be stopped before it spreads further. The church was built on order, discipline, and tradition, not the whims of peasants who think themselves musicians." Klaus reads it twice, then crumples it. "Don't let it bother you," Father Ulrich says. "It doesn't." "Yes, it does." Klaus sits. "They're calling us crude, unqualified. Peasants." "You are peasants, so am I. So is most of Bavaria. But they're saying we're mocking liturgy. Are you?" "No, we're honoring it. Just differently." Father Ulrich nods. "Then ignore them. History will decide who was right." But Klaus can't ignore it, because the pamphlet works. Some choirs disband. Some priests ban congregational singing. Some villages that were considering starting choirs decide against it. Fear spreads faster than music. In January 1697, Klaus receives a different kind of letter from Johann Pachelbel. "Klaus, I've seen the pamphlet. Ignore it. You're not mocking liturgy. You're reminding people that worship is participatory, not performative. That's threatening to those who profit from performance. Keep going. I'm composing something for your choir. Simple. 4 voices, no instruments needed. It's called Sing Joyfully, because that's what you've taught people to do." Johann Klaus reads it, then reads it again. Someone believes in him, someone who actually knows music, someone who matters. He pins the letter to the wall of his tower and keeps writing. By spring, the controversy dies down, not because it's resolved, but because people stop caring. The Archbishop has bigger problems, political problems, territorial disputes. The pamphlet's author remains anonymous. Eventually, people forget about it, and the choirs keep singing, quietly, persistently. Klaus continues teaching. More visitors arrive. More letters, more questions. And Klaus slowly learns something. He's good at this, not because he's trained, not because he's talented, but because he listens. He listens to what people need, what they fear, what makes them want to quit. And he responds honestly, without pretense, without dogma, just truth. And people respond to truth. In April 1697, Father Ulrich falls ill. A fever, chills, coughing. Klaus visits him daily, brings soup, tea, wood for the fire. "You don't have to do this," the priest says. "I know. I'm old. I've lived a full life." "You're 66, that's not that old." Father Ulrich smiles weakly. "In 1697, it's ancient." Klaus sits beside the bed. "Don't die," he says. "Why not?" "Because I need you." Father Ulrich looks at him, surprised. "You've never said that before." "I've never felt it before." The priest reaches out, takes Klaus's hand. "You don't need me, Klaus. You never did. You just needed permission to believe in yourself. That's not true. It is, and you know it." Klaus says nothing. Father Ulrich squeezes his hand. "The choir will survive without me," he says. "It might even survive without you, because you gave them something bigger than either of us." "What?" "Each other." Father Ulrich closes his eyes. Klaus sits with him until he falls asleep. Father Ulrich recovers. Slowly, weakly, but he recovers. By May, he's back in the church, still frail, still coughing occasionally, but alive. The choir celebrates with a special mass. They sing Pachelbel's new piece, Sing Joyfully. It's simple, melodic, uplifting. The 4 parts weave together like a braid. The congregation joins, tentatively at first, then boldly. By the end, everyone is singing, the choir, the congregation, Even Father Ulrich, voice thin but present. Klaus conducts, eyes closed, feeling the sound surround him. This is what he was trying to silence 2 years ago. This joy. This community, this noise, and now he can't imagine life without it. Klaus Bittermann survived controversy, defied the archbishop, kept the choirs singing. But in 1698, he'll face his greatest challenge yet, success. Summer 1698, a proposal arrives. From the mayor of Rothenburg, he wants to host a festival, a gathering of all the choirs Klaus has helped create. Think of it, the mayor says, visiting the tower. Choirs from across Bavaria, all in one place, singing together. It would be historic, Klaus frowns. Why? Why? Because it's a celebration of what you've built. I haven't built anything. Klaus, Father Ulrich interjects, you've inspired 14 choirs across 6 regions. That's not nothing. It's also not a festival. The mayor leans forward. It would bring visitors, revenue, recognition. For Rothenburg, for the choirs, for you. I don't want recognition. But the choirs might. Klaus looks at Father Ulrich. The priest nods. It's worth considering. Klaus sighs. I'll ask them. That evening, Klaus presents the idea to the St. Sebastian choir. They're enthusiastic. A festival? Greta says. With other choirs? That sounds wonderful. It sounds exhausting, Klaus says. It sounds like fun, Michael corrects. And an opportunity, Johann adds, to show people what congregational singing can be. Klaus crosses his arms. This isn't about showing people anything. It's about singing. Can't it be both? Ernst asks. Klaus doesn't answer, because he doesn't know. The festival is scheduled for September 12th, 1698, 3 months to prepare. Klaus sends letters to all 14 choirs, inviting them. 12 accept, 2 decline. Too far, too busy, too nervous. The mayor is thrilled. Father Ulrich is cautiously optimistic. Klaus is dreading it. Preparations consume the summer. The village builds a stage in the square. Benches are arranged, banners are hung, food stalls are planned. Klaus focuses on the music. He writes to each choir leader, suggests songs they all know, hymns, folk songs. Pachelbels sing joyfully. He proposes a structure. Each choir performs individually. Then, all together, they sing as one massive choir, 180 voices. It's ambitious, maybe impossible. But Klaus is committed. If they're doing this, they're doing it right. September 12th arrives. The weather is perfect, clear, warm, breezy. The choirs arrive throughout the morning, from Dinkelsbühl, Würzburg, Bamberg, Nuremberg. Klaus greets each one. Anna from Dinkelsbühl hugs him. I can't believe this is happening. Neither can I. The butcher from Würzburg shakes his hand. Thank you for everything. I didn't do anything. You did everything. By noon, all 12 choirs are assembled, 180 people, nervous, excited, chattering. Klaus stands on the stage, looks at them, farmers, bakers, blacksmiths, tailors, mothers, sons, daughters, normal people, who learned to sing. Because he muffled some bells, it's absurd, but it's real. The festival begins at 2 o'clock. The mayor gives a speech. Father Ulrich offers a blessing, and then the choirs perform, one by one. Each choir sings 2 songs. Anna's Dinkelsbühl choir goes first. Nervous but earnest. The Würzburg choir follows. Loud and enthusiastic. Bamberg, Nuremberg, Rothenburg, Ansbach. Each choir has its own character, its own sound. Some are polished, some are rough, but all of them are joyful. The audience, hundreds of villagers from across Bavaria, listens, applauds, smiles. And Klaus, watching from the side of the stage, realizes something. This isn't about him. It never was. It's about them. These people who wanted to sing and found a way. At 4 o'clock, Klaus takes the stage for the final performance. All 12 choirs gather behind him. 180 voices. The square falls silent. Klaus raises his hands. We're going to sing together, he says. Not as 12 choirs, but as one. One voice, one song. He looks at them. "O come, all ye faithful," he says. The song that started everything. They nod. Klaus raises his hands higher. The choirs inhale, together, and they sing. 180 voices. Untrained, unpolished, unprofessional, but unified. The sound is massive. It fills the square, echoes off buildings, rises into the sky. Klaus conducts, but barely, because they don't need him. They're listening to each other. Breathing together, singing together. When the hymn ends, the square is silent. Then someone starts clapping, then everyone, hundreds of people, standing, cheering, crying. Klaus lowers his hands, turns to the choirs. They're smiling, not at the audience, at each other, because they felt it, the connection, the unity, the joy. And Klaus, for the first time in his life, feels proud, not of himself, of them. The festival was a success. The choirs sang as one. And Klaus Bittermann, the man who wanted silence, created something that will echo for centuries. But the story isn't over, because in 1699, Klaus will make a decision that changes everything. 3 weeks after the festival, another letter arrives. Not from a village choir, from Vienna, the imperial court. Klaus stares at the seal, a double-headed eagle, gold wax. He almost doesn't open it, but Father Ulrich insists. "It's from the emperor's court, Klaus. You can't just ignore it." "Yes, I can." "Open it." Klaus breaks the seal. The letter is written in formal German, calligraphy, expensive paper. It reads, "Herr Klaus Bittermann, His Imperial Majesty Leopold, I has heard of your work with congregational choirs across Bavaria. We are impressed by your dedication to making music accessible to common people. The Imperial Court would like to invite you to Vienna to serve as Director of Public Music, a newly created position. Your responsibilities would include establishing community choirs throughout the empire, training choir leaders, and advising the court on matters of liturgical music. The position includes a generous salary, lodging in Vienna, and the emperor's personal patronage. We await your response." Klaus reads it 3 times, then hands it to Father Ulrich. The priest reads it, goes pale. "Klaus," he whispers, This is incredible. It's insane. It's an honor. The imperial court." "The emperor," Klaus shakes his head. "I'm not going to Vienna." "What? Why not?" "Because I'm a bell ringer in Rothenburg, not a court official." "You could be both." "No, I couldn't. If I go to Vienna, I leave the tower, the church, the choir." "The choir would understand." "Would they?" Father Ulrich sets down the letter. "Klaus," he says carefully, "you've spent your entire life hiding in this tower. Now, you're being offered a chance to do something bigger, to reach more people, to make a real difference. I'm already making a difference here. You could make a bigger one in Vienna." Klaus stands, walks to the window. Below, the village is waking up. Smoke from chimneys, children playing, Johann opening his bakery. This is his life, small, contained, familiar. Vienna is the opposite, big, uncertain, overwhelming. "I'm not going," Klaus says. Father Ulrich sighs. "At least think about it." "I don't need to think about it." "Klaus." I said no. But Klaus does think about it. For days, weeks. He imagines Vienna, the palaces, the courts, the grand cathedrals. He imagines teaching hundreds of choirs, training thousands of singers, changing an entire empire. It's tempting, not the prestige, not the salary, but the reach. He could do so much more in Vienna, help so many more people. But he thinks about the St. Sebastian choir, about Johann and Greta and Ernst and Michael, about the letters he receives every week from small villages, about the tower, his tower. And he realizes Vienna doesn't need him. Vienna has plenty of musicians, teachers, officials. But Rothenburg needs him, not because he's special, but because he's here. In November, Klaus writes his response. It's short. "Your Imperial Majesty, I am honored by your offer, but I must decline. My place is in Rothenburg, in the bell tower of St. Sebastian's Church, with the choir I accidentally created. I am not a court musician. I am a bell ringer. And that is enough. With respect, Klaus Bittermann, he seals it, sends it, and doesn't regret it. When Father Ulrich learns Klaus declined, he's shocked. You said no to the Emperor? Yes. Klaus, do you understand what you just turned down? Yes. Then why? Klaus looks at him. Because, he says, I don't want to be important. I just want to be useful. Father Ulrich stares at him. Then slowly, he smiles. You're a fool, Klaus Bittermann. I know. A noble fool. Klaus shrugs. I'll take it. That evening, Klaus tells the choir. They're gathered for rehearsal. He stands before them. The imperial court offered me a position, he says. They gasp. I said no. Silence. Then Johann speaks. Why? Because, Klaus says, my place is here, with you. Greta's eyes fill with tears. You really mean that? Michael asks. Yes. Ernst grins. Good, because we're not done with you yet. The choir laughs, and Klaus feels something he's never felt before. Certainty. He made the right choice. Not because it was smart, but because it was true. Klaus Bittermann turned down the emperor, chose a bell tower over a palace, chose a village choir over an empire. And in doing so, he proved something. Greatness isn't about reach, it's about presence. But Klaus's story isn't over, because in 1700 something will happen that forces him to confront his greatest fear. January 1700, a new century. Bavaria celebrates. Bells ring across the empire, except in Rothenburg. Because Klaus Bittermann refuses. It's just another year, he tells Father Ulrich. It's a new century. Same difference. The priest laughs. You're impossible. But the village doesn't care. They celebrate anyway, in the square, with music, dancing, wine. The choir performs. And for one night, Rothenburg feels like the center of the world. But in February, something shifts. Father Ulrich's cough returns. Worse than before. He tries to hide it, covers his mouth during Mass. Dismisses concerns. It's nothing, he says, just winter. But by March, he can't stand for more than 10 minutes. Klaus visits him daily, brings food, medicine, firewood. You need a doctor, Klaus says. Doctors are expensive. I have money saved. For what? You live in a tower. You don't spend anything. Then let me spend it on you. Father Ulrich smiles weakly. You're a good man, Klaus. I'm a stubborn man. Same thing. The doctor comes in April, examines Father Ulrich. Says nothing for a long time, then he speaks. Consumption, he says. Klaus freezes. Consumption, tuberculosis. A death sentence in 1700. How long? Father Ulrich asks calmly. The doctor shakes his head. Months, maybe a year. Can you do anything? Make you comfortable, that's all. After the doctor leaves, Klaus sits with Father Ulrich. They don't speak, just sit. Finally, the priest says, I'm not afraid. You should be. Why? I've lived a good life, served God, helped people. You're 68. That's not old enough. Klaus, Father Ulrich says gently, no age is old enough. But I've done what I needed to do. Klaus looks at him. What about me? He asks quietly. What about you? Who's going to tell me I'm wrong? Who's going to push me, challenge me? Father Ulrich smiles. The choir, each other, yourself. That's not the same. No, it's not. But Klaus... The priest reaches out, takes his hand. You don't need me anymore. You haven't for years. Klaus feels his throat tighten. Yes, I do. No, Father Ulrich says, you just want me. There's a difference. Over the next 4 months, Father Ulrich weakens. He stops saying Mass, stops leaving his room. Klaus visits every day. They talk, reminisce, laugh. Remember, Father Ulrich says one afternoon, when you muffled the bells? Don't remind me. You were so certain it would work, so convinced you'd finally have peace. I was an idiot. You were lonely. Klaus looks at him. I was, he admits, for a long time. And now, Klaus thinks, now I'm less lonely. Father Ulrich smiles. Good. In August, Father Ulrich calls Klaus to his bedside. The priest is thin, pale, barely breathing. Klaus, he whispers, I'm here. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let the choir die. Klaus blinks back tears. I won't. And don't go back to the tower. What? Don't hide. Don't retreat. Keep living, keep teaching, keep being you. I don't know how to be me without you. Father Ulrich squeezes his hand. Yes, you do, he says. You've been doing it for years. Klaus leans closer. I don't want you to die. I know, but Klaus... The priest's voice is fading. Death isn't the worst thing. Silence is. Those are his last words. Father Ulrich dies that night, peacefully, in his sleep, and Klaus Bittermann, for the first time in his life, lets himself cry. The funeral is 3 days later. The church is packed. The entire village, the choir, visitors from other parishes. Klaus stands at the front, numb. They ask him to speak. He doesn't want to, but he does. Father Ulrich, Klaus says, was the only person who believed I could be more than a bell ringer, who saw something in me I didn't see in myself. He was my friend. His voice breaks. He stops. The choir stands. Together they sing, "O come, all ye faithful." Not because it's appropriate, but because it's true. It's the song that started everything. The song Father Ulrich loved. Klaus listens, eyes closed, and feels the priest's presence, not in the church, in the song. After the funeral, Klaus climbs the tower, sits among the bells, silent, muffled, waiting. He stares at them, thinks about unwrapping them, ringing them, letting them scream for him. But he doesn't, because Father Ulrich was right. Silence is worse than death, and Klaus refuses to be silent anymore. Father Ulrich is gone. Klaus is alone, again, but this time he's not hiding, because he made a promise, and Klaus Bittermann, for all his faults, keeps his promises. September, 1700. Rothenburg needs a new priest. The bishop sends candidates, 3 of them, all young, ambitious, trained in theology and canon law. They interview with the parish council. Klaus attends. Reluctantly, the first candidate is formal, rigid, quotes scripture constantly. The second is charming, theatrical, talks about revitalizing the parish. The third is quiet, thoughtful, asks more questions than he answers. His name is Father Benedict, 29 years old, fresh from seminary. The parish council votes. Father Benedict wins. Klaus abstains. Father Benedict arrives in October. He's nothing like Father Ulrich. Younger, energetic, modern. He wants to change things, immediately. The church needs repairs, he tells the council. The roof is leaking. The pews are rotting. We know, Klaus says. And the choir, Father Benedict continues. They're wonderful, but they should have robes, proper ones. And maybe an organ? The council murmurs approval. Klaus stands. We don't need an organ. Every church needs an organ. We've managed without one for 4 years. Father Benedict smiles. I'm not saying the choir isn't good. I'm saying they could be better, with proper accompaniment. Klaus's jaw tightens. They're perfect as they are. Nothing is perfect, Herr Bittermann. The room goes silent. Klaus and Father Benedict stare at each other. Finally, Klaus sits. Do what you want, he says, but don't touch the choir. But Father Benedict does touch the choir. Not maliciously, not dramatically, just differently. He attends rehearsals, offers suggestions. Maybe slow that hymn down? Perhaps blend the harmonies more. Have you considered adding a descant? The choir listens, nods, tries his suggestions. Klaus watches from the back, seething. After rehearsal, he confronts Father Benedict. "Why are you doing this?" Klaus asks. "Doing what?" "Changing things. The choir was fine. And now it's better." "Says who?" Father Benedict sighs. "Herr Bitterman, I'm not trying to undermine you. I'm trying to help." "We don't need help. Everyone needs help." Klaus steps closer. "Father Ulrich never interfered." "I'm not Father Ulrich." "Exactly." Father Benedict doesn't flinch. "I understand you're grieving," he says. "I understand Father Ulrich was important to you, but I'm here now and I have ideas, good ideas. You don't have to like me, but you do have to work with me." Klaus glares at him, then walks out. Over the next 3 months, tension grows. Klaus and Father Benedict disagree on everything: the choir's schedule, the hymn choices, the tone of Mass. Father Benedict wants innovation. Klaus wants tradition. The choir is caught in the middle. Some side with Father Benedict. He's young, fresh, enthusiastic. Others side with Klaus. He's loyal, experienced, the founder. Rehearsals become awkward, tense. By Christmas, the choir is fracturing. Again. On Christmas Eve, Klaus doesn't attend Mass. He stays in the tower, alone. Below, he hears the choir singing. They sound good, really good. Father Benedict has trained them well, but Klaus doesn't care, because it's not his choir anymore. It's Father Benedict's, and that hurts more than he expected. On Christmas morning, someone climbs the tower. Klaus assumes it's Father Ulrich. For a moment, he forgets the priest is dead. Then he remembers, and it breaks him all over again. The visitor is Father Benedict. "May I come in?" the priest asks. Klaus doesn't answer. Father Benedict enters anyway. He sits on the floor, uninvited. "You weren't at Mass," he says. "No." "The choir missed you." "They seemed fine." Father Benedict nods. "They were. But fine isn't the same as complete." Klaus looks at him. "I know you don't like me," Father Benedict continues. "And I understand why. I'm not Father Ulrich. I never will be. But Klaus, I'm not trying to replace him, or you. I'm just trying to serve this parish the best I can." "By changing everything?" "By building on what you started." Klaus shakes his head. "It doesn't feel like building. It feels like erasing." Father Benedict leans forward. "Then help me," he says. "Show me what matters, what to preserve, what to protect." "Because honestly, I don't know. I'm 29. I've been a priest for 2 years. I'm doing my best, but I need guidance." Klaus stares at him. "You're asking me for guidance?" "Yes. I'm a bell ringer. You're more than that. The choir knows it. The village knows it. Even the bishop knows it." Klaus looks away. "I'm not a teacher." "Then what are you?" Klaus thinks. "I'm someone who accidentally cared." Father Benedict smiles. "That's the best kind of teacher." That afternoon, Klaus and Father Benedict walk through the village. They talk about Father Ulrich, about the choir, about the future. "I want the choir to grow," Father Benedict says, "but I don't want to lose what makes them special." "Then listen to them," Klaus says. "Not me, them. Ask them what they want, what they need, what brings them joy." "Will you help me do that?" Klaus hesitates, then nods. "Yes." On December 26th, Klaus attends rehearsal, for the first time in 3 months. The choir sees him, stops singing, stares. Klaus stands at the entrance. "I'm sorry," he says. "I've been difficult." Johann laughs. "You're always difficult." "True, but I've been worse than usual." Greta smiles. "We missed you." Klaus nods. "I missed you too." Father Benedict gestures to the front. "Would you like to conduct?" Klaus looks at him, then at the choir. "Together," Klaus says. "We'll conduct together." Father Benedict grins. "Deal." And that evening, Klaus and Father Benedict lead the choir, not as rivals but as partners, and it works. Klaus learned to let go, to share, to trust, and in doing so, he saved the choir. Again. But Klaus Bitterman's story is almost over, because in 1702, he'll make one final decision. Spring 1702. Klaus is 53 years old. His joints ache. His back hurts. His hearing is fading. He's been living in the bell tower for 16 years, and for the first time, he's considering leaving. Not the village, just the tower. Father Benedict has offered him a room in the parish house. "You're getting older, Klaus," the priest says. "The tower is cold, damp. You need comfort." "I'm fine. You're stubborn." Same thing. But Klaus knows Father Benedict is right. The tower is wearing him down. Every climb is harder, every winter colder. His body is telling him something. It's time. But leaving the tower means confronting something deeper. For 16 years, this has been his refuge. His fortress, his identity. If he leaves, who is he? Just another old man in a village. Unremarkable, ordinary. And after everything, the choir, the festival, the letters, the defiance, ordinary feels like failure. One evening, Klaus sits among the bells, still muffled, still silent. He runs his hand along St. Sebastian's cold iron. "What should I do?" he asks the bell. It doesn't answer. Of course it doesn't. But Klaus listens anyway, and in the silence, he realizes something. The bells don't need him. They never did. They're just objects, iron and clapper and rope. The choir doesn't need him either. Not anymore. They're trained, confident, self-sufficient. Father Benedict can guide them now. Klaus is unnecessary, and that should feel freeing, but instead it feels terrifying. In June, Klaus makes a decision. He'll leave the tower. But first, he'll do something he's avoided for 4 years. He'll unwrap the bells, all of them. Let them ring again. One last time. He tells Father Benedict. The priest is shocked. Why now? Because, Klaus says, it's time. For what? To let them speak again. Father Benedict doesn't understand, but he doesn't argue. On Sunday, June 15th, 1702, Klaus climbs the bell tower, for the last time as its resident. He unwraps the bells, slowly, methodically. The cloth falls away, the clappers swing free. St. Sebastian, St. Agnes, St. Peter, St. Catherine, St. Michael, St. Mary, all 6 bells, silent for 4 years. Now ready to sing. Klaus descends to the ringing chamber. Below, Mass has just ended. The congregation is filing out. Father Benedict signals. Klaus takes a breath and pulls the first rope. St. Sebastian rings, deep, resonant, powerful. The entire church shakes. The congregation stops, turns, looks up. Klaus pulls the second rope. St. Agnes, high, piercing, clear. Then St. Peter, St. Catherine, St. Michael, St. Mary, all 6 bells, ringing together for the first time in 4 years. The sound is overwhelming, chaotic, joyful, violent. It fills the valley, echoes off mountains. The entire village hears. People rush into the streets, stare at the church. The bells are ringing. The bells that have been silent through births and deaths and harvests and storms. The bells that Klaus muffled because he wanted peace. They're ringing. And Klaus, standing in the bell chamber, feels tears streaming down his face. Not because the bells are ringing, but because he doesn't hate the sound anymore. He's learned to hear it differently, not as noise but as voice. The voice of the church, the village, the community, the voice he tried to silence and failed. Thank God. After the bells stop, Klaus climbs down. The entire village is waiting in the square, silent, staring at him. He walks through the crowd. They part. Father Benedict steps forward. "Klaus," he says, "that was loud? Beautiful." Klaus looks at him, surprised. Really? Really, the bells and the choir, together, they complement each other. Klaus thinks about this. For 4 years he believed they were opposites, bells or voices, chaos or harmony. But Father Benedict is right. They're not opposites, they're partners. The bells announce, the voices respond, the bells call, the voices answer. One isn't better than the other. They're just different. And difference is beautiful. That afternoon, Klaus moves out of the tower. He carries his few possessions down the narrow stairs. A blanket, some clothes, letters, the baton Father Ulrich gave him. Father Benedict helps. They move Klaus into a small room in the parish house. It has a bed, a window, a fireplace. It's warm, comfortable. Klaus sits on the bed. It's soft, too soft. He's not used to it. "Will you be all right?" Father Benedict asks. Klaus nods. "I think so. You can visit the tower any time." "I know." Father Benedict leaves. Klaus sits alone in his new room. It's quiet. Not the echoing silence of the tower, just normal quiet. He looks out the window. He can see the church, the square, the village. From here, he's not above it all. He's part of it, and that feels right. That evening, the choir gathers for rehearsal. Klaus attends, but when he arrives, they're not in the church. They're in the square, standing in a circle, holding candles, waiting. Klaus approaches, confused. "What's happening?" he asks. Johann steps forward. "We wanted to do something," he says, "to thank you." "For what?" "For everything. The choir, the music, the community." Klaus shakes his head. "I didn't do anything." "You did everything," Greta says. "You taught us to listen," Michael adds. "You taught us to sing," Ernst says. "You taught us to care," Anna says, stepping forward from the crowd. Klaus looks at her. "Anna? What are you doing here?" "We all came," she says. "All the choirs, from everywhere." Klaus looks around and sees them. Dozens of people, hundreds maybe. From Dinkelsbühl, Würzburg, Bamberg, Nuremberg, all the choirs he's helped, all standing in the square, waiting. Father Benedict steps forward. "Klaus Bittermann," he says, "you once muffled bells to find silence. Instead you gave us song, you tried to be alone, instead you built community. You thought you were a failure, but you created something that will outlive us all." The crowd murmurs agreement. "So tonight," Father Benedict continues, "we want to sing, for you, all of us, together." Klaus's throat tightens. "You don't have to. We want to," Johann says. Father Benedict raises his hands. The crowd, 200 voices, maybe more, inhales, and they sing. "O come, all ye faithful." The song that started everything. But different now, richer, deeper, fuller. 200 voices, harmonizing, blending, lifting. Klaus stands in the center, surrounded by sound. Not the violent chaos of bells, but the gentle power of voices. And for the first time in his life, Klaus Bittermann feels completely, utterly at peace. Klaus left the tower, rang the bells, and discovered that silence and song aren't opposites, they're partners. But Klaus's story isn't quite over, because in 1703, one final chapter remains. Winter 1703. Klaus is 54. He's adjusting to life outside the tower. It's strange. He sleeps in a bed, eats regular meals, talks to people daily. He's normal, and surprisingly, he doesn't hate it. The choir continues. Father Benedict and Klaus lead together. They've found a rhythm. Father Benedict handles theology and liturgy. Klaus handles heart and soul. It works. But something is changing in Klaus. He's thinking about the future, not his future. He doesn't have much left, and he knows it. But the choir's future. What happens when he's gone? Who will teach new choir leaders? Who will answer letters from villages across Bavaria? Who will preserve the thing he accidentally created? One evening, Klaus discusses this with Father Benedict. "I need to write it down," Klaus says. "Write what down?" "How to start a choir, how to lead one, how to keep it joyful." Father Benedict nods slowly. "A manual, I suppose, but simpler, just guidelines, principles. That's brilliant. It's practical." "I'm not going to live forever." Father Benedict smiles sadly. "None of us are." Over the next 3 months, Klaus writes, Not easily. He's never written anything longer than a letter. His handwriting is terrible, his grammar worse. But he writes. Every evening by candlelight in his small room. He writes about breathing together, about listening to each other, about choosing joy over perfection, about why congregational singing matters, not because it's beautiful, but because it's participatory. It turns observers into creators, audiences into communities, isolation into connection. Klaus writes about mistakes he made, trying to control the choir, pushing too hard, refusing help. He writes about what worked, patience, honesty, humility, and most importantly, showing up. The secret to leading a choir, he writes, is not talent or training, it's presence. Be there, every week, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to. By April, he's finished. 40 pages, handwritten, imperfect, but true. He shows it to Father Benedict. The priest reads it in one sitting. When he finishes, his eyes are wet. Klaus, he says, this is important. It's just some thoughts. It's more than that. It's a philosophy, a movement. Klaus shakes his head. It's just how to teach villagers to sing. Exactly, Father Benedict says, and that's revolutionary. Father Benedict has the manuscript copied, 5 times. He sends copies to the choirs Klaus has trained, to Anna in Dinkelsbühl, to the butcher in Würzburg, to choir leaders across Bavaria. With a note, Klaus Bittermann has written a guide for congregational singing. Study it, share it, pass it on. This is how movements survive. By summer, Klaus's guide is spreading, copied by hand, shared between villages, discussed after Mass. New choirs form, in villages Klaus has never heard of, using his principles, his methods, his philosophy. One evening, a young man arrives in Rothenburg. He's 17, nervous, holds a worn copy of Klaus's manuscript. Herr Bittermann? He asks. Yes? I'm Thomas, from Stuttgart. I read your guide. I started a choir in my village. 8 people so far. We're terrible, but we're trying. Klaus smiles. Terrible is a good start. Thomas grins. Really? Really. Keep going. It gets better. Thomas thanks him, leaves, and Klaus realizes his words are teaching people he'll never meet. In places he'll never visit. Long after he's gone, it's humbling and terrifying and perfect. In September, Klaus receives a letter from the Archbishop, the same one who threatened him 7 years ago. Klaus opens it nervously. It reads, Herr Bittermann, I was wrong about you. Your choirs have spread across Bavaria, hundreds of them now. They are bringing people to church who haven't attended in years. They are creating community where there was isolation. I thought you were disrupting tradition. Instead, you were renewing it. The church moves slowly, but sometimes slowly is too slow. Thank you for your stubbornness. Archbishop Heinrich von Schönborn. Klaus reads it 3 times, then laughs, then cries, then laughs again. He shows it to Father Benedict. You were vindicated, the priest says. I don't care about vindication. Then what do you care about, Klaus thinks. That people are singing. That's all. Just singing. That winter, Klaus gets sick. Not consumption, just old age. His body is wearing out. He coughs constantly, struggles to walk, sleeps most of the day. Father Benedict calls a doctor. The doctor examines him, shakes his head. His heart is failing, he says quietly. Not much time. Klaus overhears. He's not surprised or afraid. He's ready. In December, Klaus asks the choir to visit. They gather in his small room. All of them. Johann, Greta, Ernst, Michael. Even Anna, who travelled from Dinkelsbühl. They sit around his bed. Klaus looks at them. These people who started as strangers, who became singers, then friends, then family. Thank you, Klaus says. For what? Johann asks. For singing, for showing up, for caring. You taught us how, Greta says. Klaus shakes his head. I didn't teach you anything. You already knew. You just needed permission. Michael smiles. Then thank you for giving us permission. Klaus nods. Will you sing something, he asks. What? Ernst asks. Anything. I just want to hear your voices one more time. The choir looks at each other. Then, without prompting, they begin. O come, all ye faithful. Softly, gently. Their voices blend, harmonize, fill the small room with warmth. Klaus closes his eyes and listens, not to the notes, but to the love behind them. When they finish, he smiles. Perfect, he whispers. Klaus Bittermann dies on December 23rd, 1703, peacefully, in his sleep. Surrounded by friends, his funeral is held on Christmas Eve. The church is packed, not just Rothenburg, but all the choirs, all the villages, hundreds of people. They don't eulogize him, they sing, for 2 hours, hymn after hymn, and when they finish, Father Benedict speaks. Klaus Bittermann was not a saint. He was grumpy, stubborn, difficult. He hated people for most of his life, but somewhere along the way, he learned to love them. Not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to try. And that's the greatest lesson any of us can learn. The congregation nods. Then they sing one final song. O come, all ye faithful. And in the bell tower, the 6 bells ring, together, in harmony with the voices below. Klaus Bittermann, the man who hated Christmas, died on Christmas Eve, but he didn't die alone. He died surrounded by the thing he spent 16 years trying to create, community. And his legacy? It's still singing. Year 2024. Location: Rothenburg, Bavaria. The Church of St. Sebastian still stands. Older now, renovated, but recognizable. The bells still ring, every Sunday. And in the nave, a choir sings. Not the original St. Sebastian choir, that ended centuries ago, but its descendant, the Rothenburg Singers. 30 voices. They rehearse Tuesday evenings, led by a music teacher named Franziska. She's 42, patient, kind, not particularly talented, but present. Every week, the choir sings the old hymns. O come, all ye faithful, Lob den Herren, but also new songs, modern arrangements, folk tunes, pop songs reimagined. They're not professional. Some members can't read music, others sing off-key. But they show up and they sing. In the back of the church, there's a small plaque. Installed in 1950, it reads, "In memory of Klaus Bittermann, 1649-1703, sacristan of St. Sebastian's Church and founder of Congregational Choir singing in Bavaria. He taught us that joy is more important than perfection and that every voice matters." Below it, in a glass case, is the original manuscript, Klaus's Guide to Leading a Choir, 40 pages, handwritten, faded. Tourists stop to read it sometimes. Most don't, but the choir knows it. Every member reads it when they join, not because they have to, but because it's tradition. One Tuesday evening, a new member joins. Her name is Sophie. She's 19, university student, studying engineering. "I can't sing," she warns Franziska. "That's okay, neither can half the choir." "Why do you let them stay?" Franziska smiles. "Because they want to. That's the only requirement." Sophie joins the soprano section. She's terrible, flat, timid, self-conscious. But the other sopranos help her, show her how to breathe, how to match pitch, how to listen. By Christmas, she's still not great, but she's better, and more importantly, she's smiling. On Christmas Eve 2024, the Rothenburg Singers perform. The church is full. Families, tourists, locals, they sing the traditional hymns. And when they reach "O come, all ye faithful," something happens. The congregation joins. Not everyone, but enough. 50 voices, 100, filling the church with imperfect, joyful sound. Franziska doesn't stop them. She encourages them, waves her arms wider, inviting more people to sing. And they do, because that's the tradition here. In Rothenburg, in St. Sebastian's Church, everyone sings. After Mass, Sophie approaches Franziska. "That was incredible," she says. "It was loud," Franziska laughs. "It was community." Franziska nods. That's the point. Sophie looks at the plaque on the wall. Klaus Bittermann, she reads. Who was he? The man who started all this. By leading a choir? By muffling some bells? Sophie looks confused. Franziska smiles. It's a long story. Come to rehearsal next week. I'll tell you. That night, Sophie Googles Klaus Bittermann. There's not much. A few academic articles, a Wikipedia page, short, mostly citations, a mention in a book about Baroque church music, but the basic story is there. Grumpy sacristan, muffled bells, accidental choir, became a movement. Sophie reads it all and thinks. The next day, she tells her roommate, I joined a choir. You? You hate singing? I did, but it's different when you're doing it with others. How? Sophie thinks. It's like you're part of something bigger, not performing, just existing. Together. Her roommate doesn't understand, but Sophie doesn't need her to. She gets it, and that's enough. Across Bavaria, across Germany, across the world, there are choirs like the Rothenburg Singers, not famous, not professional, just groups of people who gather weekly to sing. Some know the story of Klaus Bittermann, most don't, but they're living his legacy, proving that you don't need talent to make music. You just need willingness, and presence, and joy. In 1692, a grumpy sacristan tried to silence Christmas. Instead, he taught the world to sing. Not perfectly, not professionally, but joyfully. He never wanted fame, or recognition, or legacy. He just wanted peace, and he found it. Not in silence, but in song. Somewhere, in a church bell tower in Bavaria, 6 bells hang. They ring every Sunday. Their sound carries across the valley. And if you listen closely, beneath the bells, you can hear voices. Hundreds of them, thousands, across centuries. Singing, always singing, because Klaus Bittermann muffled some bells and accidentally taught us that the most beautiful sound in the world isn't perfection, it's people, together, trying. Klaus Bittermann, 1649-1703, was a real person, sort of. The core of this story, a sacristan who muffled church bells and accidentally inspired congregational singing, is based on fragments of truth scattered across Bavarian church records. But mostly, it's legend. The kind of legend that survives because it should be true, because it reminds us that the best revolutions don't come from brilliance. They come from ordinary people making small, stubborn choices, like muffling some bells, or showing up to rehearsal, or singing even when you can't carry a tune. Klaus didn't change the world because he was talented. He changed it because he cared, eventually, reluctantly, against his will. But he cared, and that was enough. If you made it this far, thank you for reading. Now close your laptop, find some people, and sing something. Badly if necessary. Klaus would approve.